The Purple Line is a community podcast, bringing you in-depth conversation with diverse leaders in the public and private sectors. Whether you're a student looking to gather advice or a professional tuning in for valuable resources, our dynamic programming provides tips for all ages and backgrounds. I'm your host, Emily Benavides, and this is The Purple Line. Thank you for tuning in to the Chile Purple Line podcast. I'm your host, Emily Benavides, and today's guest is Luis Martinez, Senior Pentagon Reporter for ABC News. Thank you for joining us, Luis.
Thanks for having me, Emily. Really fun to be here.
So, Luis, let's start by getting to know you. What's your backstory?
So my backstory is I'm a lifer with ABC News. I've worked here now for 35 years. Worked my way up from an entry-level job to the one that I've held now for the last 18 years.
So you just talked about building a source network. Can you talk to us a little bit more about what that means and how you go about not just building it, but protecting it?
Sure. So, there's two source networks, right? One is how can I find opportunities elsewhere here in Washington in terms of new job opportunities, or just finding out exactly what it is people do. When it comes to me journalistically, one of the things that's important is protecting the sources that help me do my reporting. But I think one of the key things when it comes to that is actually helping to build that network. And the most important thing is really just being a trusted player. In other words, you are somebody that they knows the subject matter, somebody that they know will be fair and balanced, and someone who is going to just understand the jargon. I cover the Pentagon, and so they speak in acronyms. I was talking about how I was covering a news conference today about JLOTs. Nobody knows what JLOTs is. It's this big system. It's being put in place in Gaza. It's my job to interpret that for my readers, for our viewers, and that's part of the source building. Because if you can understand what that system is, if you can have a conversation with somebody who's in the military or in the defense system or in national security and can speak in acronyms, you've got a leg up on most everybody else. And then again, it's the level of work that you do and whether it's respected that's going to help you. And it just builds upon it, one step at a time. And the longer you're at it, the better you get at it. And for young people, young journalists, I think that's key, is don't be intimidated when you're trying to start out this career path. Don't be intimidated in reaching out to officials. Don't be intimidated by the story itself. You can do it. It's just a matter of your initiative to follow through with it.
It's great advice. I want to pick up on something that you said just now about how your role is to interpret the jargon for the audience. How do you also sort of interpret the jargon and your role for your family and breaking it down for your family as a first-generation immigrant to this country?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a first-generation immigrant here in the United States. Came with its struggles. When I was growing up, I was one of the first Central Americans probably on Long Island in the 1970s. And I had to explain where Central America was. I remember there was an episode one time where I remember there was this one time when I think I was in sixth grade. At class, the teacher asked a fellow student, "Hey, come up to the map and show me where Central America is," and they pointed right to Kansas. Because it makes sense. It's right in the heart of the United States, right? But fast forward 40 years, and everybody knows where Central America is. There's a greater level of awareness of who Honduran is, what foods a Salvadoran likes. Pupusas are huge in this area, right, in this region here in D.C. But one of the things that, when you have that immigrant experience is there's such a focus on the work, and there's such a focus on the next generation, for me, to study hard and to prove yourself and to really do the best that you can. And I think I've carried those values with me, right? But my parents, it's a blessing that they're really super informed. They watch a lot of news. They really are up with current events, and so it makes my job easier. So, but then the challenge is when they ask me a question about what my role is, they'll know that something is happening around the world, and they say, "Hey, we didn't contact you because we know you're busy," and they're spot on. I was busy, but then afterwards we have the discussion, and they'll ask me some questions, and then I realize they know the situation, but I kind of have to still explain more the nuance and they're a barometer for me of the general audience. And that I think is key, because if I want to be successful in telling the journalistic story that I'm covering, I have to be able to reach my parents. And to me, that's just a huge thing. And just being able to convey to them, a little more of the nuance, maybe a little more of the backstory, I think opens their eyes. And I think if I can do that with the broader readership and viewership, then I've done a good job.
That's great. So I want to pick up, you're talking about the hard work that you put in while you were in school. It seems like it paid off, and you were able to attend Columbia University. It's known as one of the preeminent places to go to get into journalism. Can you just talk to us about that experience and what it meant for your career?
Yeah, I think it definitely helped. I mean, there is such a thing as a brand name when it comes to academics. And, when you go to an Ivy League school, it's going to get noticed, even if you weren't the best student like I was. But it kind of shows, the struggle to get there to begin with, right? But once you're there, you've got to work really hard. And I think that's something that future employers look at, right? But regardless of my situation, what I always tell young people trying to get into journalism is don't worry about where you went to school, because ultimately it might get you through the door, but what's going to keep you in that room is how you perform, and it's going to be a completely different environment potentially, and so you've got to adjust. And ultimately it's your skills. And if you went to another school that didn't have the name identification like Columbia has, and you get it and you end up in a journalistic job, it's just how well you do that job that's going to get you noticed. And everything in the past, your academic career, it's in the past. And now it's like, okay, what have you done for me lately? And if you continue just to break scoop after scoop and you show that you're a really good reporter, it doesn't matter. And then it's all a level playing field once you're in the business place.
So I want to learn a little bit more about what it's been like for you in the news media landscape, and how not just developing a network of sources has helped you, but a network of mentors and allies. Can you speak to that for us, please?
Oh, definitely. I mean, me, because I was the accidental journalist who kind of fell into this and then loved it. The work becomes the school, the journalism school. And, a lot depends on your own initiative. I think I mentioned that earlier. You've got to step up. And if you don't know why you're doing something, you can just choose to do that. Or you can choose to ask the question and understand why. And who are you going to ask that question of? People who have experience. And I think if people are impressed by your work, if people are impressed with your initiative, they're going to help you. And those people will become your unofficial mentors. And I personally had people who mentored me and helped me through my career path at a very young age. And I think that I learned so much from them. I wanted to emulate them. I remember one colleague, he used to fold his shirt sleeves a certain way, and I saw that and I said, I'm going to do the same. And I mean, it's little things like that. But ultimately, it's all about seeing the value in who they are as people, as journalists, and as professionals. And if you can find those people, you're going to ask some really basic questions right off the start. And then the more you get into it, you learn the nuance, and you carry that over. And over time, I've ended up doing the same. And I've ended up helping out as many people as want to approach me. And I really love it when people ask me questions, especially the young people, whether they be at my organization or elsewhere. Because what really matters is just, you're passing forward. and you're paying it forward, I think was the expression is. And I think, it's something that people did for me, I want to do for others.
All right, so you heard that, podcast listeners. Luis is waiting for your outreach.
That's exactly right. Yeah, anytime.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Emily.
Thanks for listening to The Purple Line. For the latest updates, follow Chili on social media at THECHLI. And you can follow me at EMBENA. Thank you for joining us on The Purple Line.